Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. I have a craving for pineapple upside down cake. But you know I don't eat sugar. So I had to do a little experimenting, and I thought I would just take you along with me as I experimented. And we'll talk about baking with Splenda as opposed to sugar, because you know it's different. Here are the ingredients. Please pause. There are quite a few of them. Take the time to write them down. And you know, while you've got it paused, you could subscribe. I'd appreciate it. We're going to start by making the topping. I've melted 2 tablespoons full of butter in this pan. As soon as it's melted, I'll turn the heat off. I'm using Splenda brown sugar blend, and that's kind of a compromise. It actually has a little sugar in it, but not much. And most of the brown sugar substitutes won't caramelize. That's a major difference between sugar and artificial sweeteners. So I'm compromising using brown sugar blend, and this actually works really well. But you have to be careful because it's sweeter than regular brown sugar. So cut back a little bit. I'm using a half cup here, and when I get it spread out as evenly as I can, I will add the pineapple. I ended up having to lap the pineapple over itself just a little bit, and it's probably better not to do that, but my pan, while it is a 10-inch, seems to be just a tiny bit smaller than some. This is my Wagner. So when you get all of those in, you would normally put a maraschino cherry in each hole. I don't like maraschino cherries, and I don't have any maraschino cherries, and maraschino cherries have lots of sugar. So instead, I'm going to add about a half teaspoonful, whatever it takes to fill up the hole, of sugar-free fruit preserves. I'm using seedless blackberry and seedless strawberry, and to me that is so much better than maraschino cherries. Just spooning enough to fill up the space, but you know, you can use cherries if you want to. Now we're going to add some nuts, and these have been chopped up really finely. Pecans is what you usually use. I had walnuts, so I'm using walnuts. I can't taste a whole lot of difference. And we're just going to sprinkle those along the top. And when we're done, we're going to just let this sit until we get our cake batter ready. We're also going to put our oven on to preheat to 350. So let's start mixing our batter. So you need 2 1/4 cups cake flour. If you don't have cake flour, I'll show you how to turn this into cake flour. This is all purpose. And then I have 3/4 cups buttermilk. I have a teaspoon of vanilla. I have 2/3 cup of Splenda. I have eggs. And then a half teaspoonful of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I just mix them together. Now we're going to make cake flour. So cake flour has less protein than all-purpose, and bread flour has more. So to turn all-purpose flour into cake flour, you take out 1 tablespoonful for every cup, and I have a 1/4 cup. I'm just going to ignore that. And then you add back in 1 tablespoon of cornstarch for each cup. And then you have a little bit lighter flour with a little bit less protein, gluten, and you'll get a more tender cake. So while many recipes say all-purpose flour, doing this will lighten it up a bit. Splenda will tend to make it a little more dense. So I'm going to sift together all of my dry ingredients. And I have 2/3 cup Splenda here. After I made the cake and tasted it, I'm going to tell you I wish I had used half a cup. I could have used just a little less. It was pretty sweet. So now I'm putting my wet ingredients into this little blender cup, actually, which is the buttermilk and the vanilla and the eggs. And I'm going to just beat that up a little bit. It doesn't have to get creamy. It's buttermilk. It won't get creamy, but you do want to mix it all together. And the buttermilk's important, by the way. It helps with the texture. Then I'm going to add my 1 stick of softened butter. That's a half cup, unsalted. And You know, you could just do this, they say, with a whisk. I'm going to use my little mixer, and I'm going to beat that butter in. If you're doing it with a whisk, you probably want to cut the butter in just with a pastry cutter. So here we go. I'm going to mix this in. Start on slow or it'll fly everywhere. So here's a note about baking with Splenda. In most cake recipes, you would cream the sugar and the butter together. You can't do that if you're using Splenda. So we cream the butter into all the dry ingredients, and it works better that way. So now we're going to add our wet ingredients, and I'm going to add them in increments, about a third at a time. And I'm going to beat it together really well, but try to do it within a minute. So you might have to stop and scrape it down and then add some more. So I'm going to add these about a third at a time, add the liquid about a third at a time, and beat it about a minute between additions. You just don't want to overbeat it. So it's coming together now. And you know, I got this little beater for like almost nothing. And I have a nice big KitchenAid, but this is easier for a small job, and I'm really enjoying it. So we're beating, this is going to be a pretty thick batter. When you get it all together, beat it about 2 minutes. See, we've got a fairly thick batter there. And I'm just now going to pour it over the topping and spread it out and even it out as much as I can without moving my pineapple around. Let me move it where you can see it. And my oven is preheated, you know, now to 350. And I'm going to cook this 35 to 40 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. Just had a thought while I was doing this. You know, I wouldn't let my great-grandchild lick a bowl because of the raw eggs, and I used to do it all the time. So it's been 40 minutes, and I'm not real happy the way this is cracked. But luckily it's the bottom of the cake, not the top. You know, you really do have a difference in the way things brown without sugar, and you have to be careful or you'll overcook it. Now I've let this cool for about 5 minutes, and I'm just going to go around it to make sure it's loosened from the sides, and we're going to see if this turns out onto a plate cleanly. And I'm just going to hope the top is prettier than the bottom. And I think it's good and loose. Okay, I'm going to turn it out. Got my plate on top of the pan, and it's cooled enough for me to handle it, but I'll get this pot holder anyway and try not to drop the plate. And let's see what we got. And you know, I'm always excited about this part because I can't tell you how many low sugar experiments. Oh, look! Oh, it looks good. I can't tell you how many low sugar experiments I've thrown in the trash. It's just a little different. Even if you're using a recipe that you get from the low sugar books, it's still a little different. And this looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Let's cut it. So we're going to cut me a slice now. I haven't had pineapple upside down cake in probably 20 years. But you know, when you're craving that one thing, nothing else will work. So I just had to make it. So let me take out a slice, and it comes out very nicely. And it does have a good texture, and it's very light, and it's very moist. So here we go. Pineapple upside down cake without sugar, without added sugar. Let me get a bite and try this. And I'm going to tell you, this tastes really good. I'm going to recommend cut back to half a cup of Splenda because it is very sweet. And it's not too sweet, but I think I would enjoy it better with just a little less Splenda. The texture's good, the taste is good, and the craving will go away. Try this if you're trying to cut back on sugar. It's great. It's not too hard to make. You'll enjoy it. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. Hope to see you again tomorrow.